the cloud. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're excited to learn about solar on some house of worships and multifamily in Detroit. And today we will be recording. So just so you know, when the presenters are speaking, if you want to mute your mics and close your video, that would be great. And then we are going to reopen it up after we're done for networking and talking and saying hello. It's a pretty informal meeting today. Kendall, if you want to wave your hand. Kendall is our program manager, and she is going to field your questions in through the chat box. We will wait for all of our presenters to talk, and then we will do our Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters today. And from D2 Solar, we have Diane Cheklich and Diane Van Buren. Excited to have you guys here today. From St. Peter's, we have Bob Chapman. From First Baptist, we have Bill Burke. Bill. And then from Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, we have Leah Wisty. Hi, Leah. So these are the speakers today. They're going to kind of go in their own order on their own agenda because we trust them and we know that they know what they're talking about. So we are going to let them share their screen at their own leisure here and kind of go through a few case studies that we're excited to learn about, and power purchase agreements and everything else that we put in our invitation. So once again, please put your name and organization in the chat box so we know you're here, and any questions, and go ahead and mute your microphones and close your video until after presentations. So at that, I'm going to let Diane Van Buren take over.
And here we are. Well, hello, everyone. So happy to be back with the 2030 district. You may recall, some of you may have been at our Solar 101 we presented earlier this year, and now it's time for us to do a little deeper dive into some of the financing techniques that have been used as case studies for our churches, and then also a great case study of a multifamily building. So that's why we've got these two together, because in fact, some of them do work very similarly. So our outline for today, Connie already introduced us all, but just to let you know, I'm going to go through a little bit with the basics and a little refresher there. And then our case studies will be of these two churches, St. Peter's that has completed their project, and then First Baptist Institutional that is in the process right now of organizing. So they have a different story and a different approach, but both using PPAs. And then Diane has done a wonderful job of putting together for her condominium association a PPA. So that's a really exciting new model. I do believe it's the very first one in the state of Michigan that has a condo association with the PPA. And then Leah Wisty is going to give us an example of other financing approaches that we're not covering that other houses of worship have used throughout the state of Michigan. And as Connie said, we'll be able to have a few minutes for Q&A. Please put your questions in the chat. And if you have a specific question for a specific speaker, please note that as well. So the first question is, why are we talking about solar? And today's not a bright sunny day for us to say, look outside, you'll see why. But I will say that your solar meters are probably still running today, even though it's raining and cloudy. The fuel is clean and it's free in the sense that the sun shines on your panels and collects those bits of electricity every single day. But in fact, as you can see, that in a single hour, the sun produces enough energy that the whole global collective demand could be met in 1 hour. So we have this God-given solar power. Let's use it. And another reason why is it has become cost competitive, and in spite of our utilities that try to tell us it's not cost competitive, in fact it is. I can tell you, when I put solar on my building, it was $6 a watt, and now it's dropped far below $6 a watt. In fact, it's down 73%. And then we have the more compelling reasons for especially this week and next week, as we go to COP 26 and we read the reports over and over and over again, it's beyond being an urgent message. It is now to a crisis message. What are we doing as a community, as a city, as faith-based, and as building owners? What are we doing to participate in helping to reverse this crisis that we're in? And there are, in fact, a lot of organizations working on this now that have created climate goals. So we can, by the way, some of these are very recent. You can see the one about Pope Francis. That's this week. They're talking at COP26. And I believe I counted nearly every major religion is attending COP26 for the religious talk. So it is an urgent. So what you will be faced with when you're talking to your congregations or to your building contractors or to whoever else is just how to battle the myths that are out there right now about, and they've persisted, right? We don't have enough this, we don't have enough that. So first one always is, well, we don't have enough sun because we have days like today, right? Well, let's make sure we know the facts versus the fiction. And the fact is we do have enough sun. And in fact, for people that used to be able to do net metering, they were able to be almost net zero if they had the appropriate panels because they could sell back their power and have enough in the summer to cover the entire year. We like to point out the fact that Michigan is ranked number 8 in the United States for technical rooftop solar potential. So what that means is we have the combination of enough sun, but also enough rooftops. And it's particularly when you look at a map of the Detroit metropolitan area and you see that it's kind of a brownish color, that's the rooftops, right? We have enough rooftops here to support that we would be ranked number 8 in the whole country with that combination. So where are we? How well are we doing is the question. Well, we're doing really lousy. When we look at the national ranking of solar, we're way down at the bottom. We are at 4 megawatts. And I always like to point out New York and Indianapolis, which have kind of the same climate as us. So you can understand that Honolulu, or you can understand how Phoenix might be way up there. But New York and Indianapolis, come on, we're kind of the same boat, right? That's a policy issue, but it's also an issue of demand. And what we want to push is we do have the demand. We have to look at what the benefits are and to help convince others that, yes, we can do this. So we do have a number of plans, as I explained, and the 2030 district is one of them that have set targets for reducing the amount of carbon and also to go with the climate change plans and to reduce our amount of fossil fuel usage. In Detroit, we have the Public Health Action Plan. We also have the mayor did sign the climate pledge several years ago. So we do know that we can have a transformative future for Detroit if we pull together and work on every rooftop that we can put into solar. So as I said, with ranking number 8, if you look at just the potential, we have about 2.6 gigawatts, not megawatts, gigawatts. So we're at 4 now. So take that 2.6 gigawatts, that's the megawatts multiplied by 1,000. So we only have 4 megawatts at this point, and it's inching along very, very slowly. The Sustainability Action Agenda, that's Joel Harini Harris's organization with the city of Detroit, they've set a goal of 6 megawatts. So adding 2 more megawatts by 2024. So that would be within the next, let's say, 3 years, we would have 50% gain. And then by 2029, 10 megawatts. Our goal is to help move that along. So 2030 district members, you can help lead the way on solar as well, because you do have a fabulous team and pledges and goals as well to reduce your carbon emissions in the city of Detroit. So there's a few other reasons why. Faith community, I know that the principle of stewardship is usually at the very root of every organization, every faith-based organization, and the stewardship of our friends, our family, our community, but also our planet. And so by helping your parishes understand that goal is number one. And helping to also be a leader. And I know, Bill, you'll be talking about this, Bill Burke, as well as Bob Chapman, how it is that you're helping your own community within the walls of your parish and also the community around you to help be a leader in demonstrating that solar does work, that we're trying to get past those myths. Diane Cheklich and I are both the co-chairs of the city's Renewable Energy Committee for the Green Task Force. And as a task force, we've put together a readiness assessment tool. Everyone's invited to participate in this readiness tool. If you think that you are ready to go that next step with solar, Diane's going to put in the chat the link that you can get to this organizational readiness tool. It's very simple, but that we will help you get to that next step as well, to find someone within your faith-based community who will stand up and be the leader in that, but then also how to proceed with your steps to get the solar. We're going to talk about our financing tools today. And briefly, there's two different models that are going to be talked about today. One is the self-funded. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can do a capital campaign where your church members give donations, or you do grant writing. That's the typical capital campaign. The other is you might get a loan. The third, the alternative method is where we have something called the power purchase agreement. And basically the root of the power purchase agreement is to help provide your church, your facility, be able to have a solar system installed where you did not have to put out the capital outlay for it. Instead, you put together, as Bob will share with you and Bill Burke, either a single member who says, I'll do it, and I'm going to have a power purchase agreement with you. Or you have a collection of people like a buyer's club that say, we'll do it. We're going to put our money together. And there's a few big advantages of doing this. First of all, the power comes into your building from the solar panels, the same as if you had installed it yourself, and it's going to be metered. And when it's metered, you're going to be able to know how much power is coming in. Your power purchase agreement person, the organization that owns that system that paid for it for you, they're going to be charging you for that power at a rate lower than what DTE would be charging you. So we could look at that as, let's say, 10 cents a kilowatt hour that you're going to be paying for the power that is being provided by the solar panels. You'll still have a DTE bill, but it's going to be at the regular DTE rate. So let's say on a day like today, you're not drawing as much power. You're going to be drawing your power from DTE instead. But on a nice, bright, sunny day, you're going to be drawing more of your power from your panels. There's a period of time that you will be paying for those panels through that exchange, through that rate. But then eventually, and we'll talk about how these agreements work with our case studies. Eventually, your power purchase agreement owner has this exit strategy with you where the facility now owns it and they have the return. The big advantage that you'll find for most of these power purchase agreements is that the owner, the group that comes together, they have a tax liability that they are going to be able to take advantage of a 26% tax credit. As a church or a nonprofit, you're not able to take a tax credit. So the advantage is, and you'll be seeing shortly, is someone else takes the tax credit, pays for it up front, you get a cheaper rate, and in the end, you own it. So let's go on to our first case study. We're going to look at Bob Chapman, who is the single owner of the PPA. Then we'll be moving on to Bill Burke, who is going to share again how they're putting theirs together, the condo, and then the other examples. Okay, let's move on. Case studies, Bob Chapman, you're on.
All right, then. Thank you. It's nice to be here. And St. Peter's, was founded in 1858 and we're a very old church with a pretty small congregation, but with a very rich history of social action. So it was not hard for us to, the congregation was very bought into the idea that it made sense that anything we could do to put our faith into action would include what could we do with the building, what could we do to do anything to mitigate climate change. And it's also a justice issue because we've got climate refugees and we're seeing that the poor are the ones that are feeling the brunt of climate change. So for us, it wasn't going to be a matter of selling the idea of doing something. It was that initial, when you look at solar, what could we do? Could we afford to do it? And that's why the power purchase agreement was a perfect vehicle for St. Peter's. We did this for, besides the creation care, by the way, I want to just say, and besides the issues of social justice on a sort of global scale, we also did it because we're making a statement that we're going to stay where we are. We're not going anywhere. We're right in Corktown, and for those of you that are familiar with that area, that's rapidly gentrifying. We were getting calls at sometimes 2 and 3 a week. Would we be interested in selling the property, selling the church, selling the parking lot? Eventually, we wound up putting a large real estate looking sign on the church that says "Not for sale" since 1858, and then it says "Open house every Sunday at 10:30." The sign continues to be there. What you see right there is the solar panels being installed. I'll get back in a second about how that came to be, but one thing that I want you to see is if you see those, what looks like concrete blocks or solid cinder blocks, they are. And the reason I want you to see them is that the panels were installed on the parish hall, which is attached to the church. And in the way that they're done that way, they don't make any holes in the roof. So sometimes people are very, very concerned about that kind of thing, as they should be, about could there be damage. And these things were installed in such a way that on racks that there were no holes had to be put into it. The panels were installed where you see them on the flat roof. We would have liked to have put them, you've seen that the roof that's in the background there, that's the north side. The opposite on the other side, then you could imagine, which faces our parking lot. That's where we wanted to put them, was on the south side, because we wanted them to be very visible as a sign to that we were of our commitment. We were advised strongly by the planning department that the historic commission would not allow us to, because it's a historic district, to install them on the south side. I wanted to go to battle about that and say our global warming trumps your historic designation concerns, but we had we did have a flat roof. We did have a place that we could install at least most of the panels that we wanted. We actually had to downsize somewhat because of this. We would have liked to have gone to a somewhat larger array. You could go to the next slide, Diane. Quickly, the next two are just gives you a sense of they're installed, and you can see how they're ballasted, they're held down, and in the background is part of Detroit along Michigan Avenue, and that's the Detroit skyline. You'd have to be up on that roof to get that view. If you're coming from Michigan, from downtown, you would have to know what you're looking for to be able to see that, because there's such a low visibility, because that's what the historic district was concerned about, that they didn't want them to be visible. And And unfortunately, our view of that downtown skyline is going to be obscured in a minute because there's going to be a 7-story hotel that is about to obscure our vision. But when they were planning that hotel, we had to be able to prove that the shading was not going to be a factor, that it wasn't going to interfere with the solar collection. Okay. That's just a pretty picture that I took that I like a lot. Got the sun, got the panels, got the cross, the whole thing. And as Diane mentioned, we are a PPA, a power purchase agreement. You can go to that next one, Diane. Yeah, Diane. And the last slide. So that's the size of a panel. For those of you who haven't seen them, they're pretty much a standard size. And that's Joanne, my wife, and I, and Pastor Denise in front of the parish hall. Right to our right, to the right would be the church. The parish hall is what these are attached to, and so the power purchase. So the issue of power purchase agreement was, if the church doesn't have the money to do the upfront cost, how do you do it? And my wife and I, we're members of St. Peter's, and decided to do the upfront cost, what I called putting my wife and my money where my mouth is. And we could not have afforded to donate. It was about $27,000 cost for this. It was a small array. It's only 11 kilowatt hours, and kilowatts. We would have liked to have gone to 18 to 20, but again, things got in the way. But we couldn't have donated that to the church, but we could afford to park the money. We could afford to invest it. And this is, by the way, I consider one of the best examples of local socially responsible investing. This is really what we're doing. And from a house of worship standpoint, it's your resources include, what are you doing with those resources? So this is local investing, but it's also local socially responsible investing. And so we put up the initial price. We worked with a solar company that had done PPAs before. And the general idea is simply we put up the price, and then the church pays us back with through the energy that gets generated, that they would have paid DTE for that power. Instead, they're paying us. And so in the process of paying for the power, and for me, this is sort of where the magic is. I wonder, how does this work? In the process of paying for their power, they're paying for the system. So there's about a 13-year payback period. And after that, the church will own the panels and go to extremely low bills. Right now, they have the bill that they pay DTE for the power that they need that the panels don't generate. And then it's really only a couple times a year. We don't generate a monthly bill, but we bill them for the power that is generated. And the really nice thing there for me and for the church is that there's an app for that. And the meter is showing exactly how much is generated. DTE is acknowledging how much is generated right on the bill, on the electric bill. We know how much power is generated, and the church has then no risk. They're only paying for the electricity that gets generated by those panels. Anything more that's needed, they're paying DTE. So they would have paid anyways, but we're charging a lower rate than DTE would have charged. Plus, when we started this, another advantage for the church with the PPA is that unlike DTE, which could not guarantee what your rate's going to be next year or 5 years from now, the PPA does. So the church signs a contract with us And we guarantee what we would be charging per kilowatt hour going out 13, 14 years. And again, it was, for us, it was not a risk to us because we knew we were going to get the money back. The only way that we wouldn't be getting paid is, I guess, if the church went out of business, which we've got no plans for the church to go out of business. So I'm going to stop there because a lot of other questions are going to be asked, and I don't want to go over my time. There were some, we're going to get to some lessons learned and things like that. But in general, it went well, you know, and what I would like to do more of is to simply, I think we have to figure out ways to celebrate. Other houses of worship have figured out ways to make those panels that are invisible more visible. Should be on our website, for example. And there should be a little counter that's showing how much energy is being generated and how much CO2 has not been put into the air because of those panels. It's those kinds of things that I would like to talk to others about what they're doing and how to make our investment more visible.
Thank you,
Diane,
Bob.
do you think I covered what you were looking for?
Yeah, we're moving on with Bill Burke now. Thank you very much, Bob. And if there are any questions, we can field those after. So now we're going to look at a church that is just starting the journey. Bill?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity really to share with you what we're doing and what our journey has been at First Baptist. I've only got a brief 3-slide presentation I just want to go through briefly. And again, First Baptist Institutional Church, when I say our solo journey, we have where we are today is we are in the process now of simply finalizing finances and the authorizations that we need to have in place to begin to invest via the PPA funding option. This is for anyone who don't know us. This is where we are. This is the West 7 Mile Road. This is our church here. We are a 105-year-old institution. In fact, we just last Sunday celebrated 105 years. And that's significant. This facility here is about 25,000 square feet. And you're looking at it from a southern view, which is the view we would anticipate our solar panels to be existing on in doing this. Okay. So how do we get to where we are? Okay. For us, the first piece and the red are the really important parts. We're a Baptist church, which means we're an independent congregation. And we decide through the spiritual leadership of the pastor of the church, Reverend Dr. Moore, and the memberships, you know, we have a lot of the say-so as to what we do is resident right at our church. So we started this journey quite a few months ago. I'd say 6-7 months ago. And for us, the key part has been and will continue to be our faith commitment. That's why it shows up first here. And through that process, what we did was we first have a thing. If you've ever been to church at First Baptist, you'll know that one of the things that we do after several congregational prayers is we have this internal steward of affirmation. And that affirmation says, I am a steward, my life is in trust, and I must give an account for my stewardship. That we take very seriously, and that we have been saying to ourselves for like I said, we're a 105-year-old church. From that, we have been a member of Michigan of Faith, Power, and Light to different levels of commitment for quite a while. And the whole idea of what we could do as a faith community and also have an opportunity to talk to other faith systems about their concepts of stewardship. was encouraging and moving us in a direction. So what we did was we built a team within our congregation, a team of people who not only shared this commitment, but also brought together certain skills. For us, again, as a church, they're primarily heavily involved with our trustee department, who has responsibility for the temporal assets of the church, with the pastor of the church. And then we went about a process of research. Okay, as you can see, we looked at the building itself, that 25,000 square foot facility. We began to look at it from a concept of what we can do to address issues of heat loss, water consumption, water usage. We do baptize people, full immersion. So water and everything else we do, we got a full kitchen and a fitness center. So all of those came to play, and lighting, because it's a big building, requires a lot of light. All of those are burdens upon our electrical consumption. And then through our membership and involvement with MIPL, and also I have a background in sustainability myself too, we began to look at what are the options for us to begin to deal with these issues of heat loss, water use, and lighting. And I think probably the biggest thing for us and for the whole team, illuminating piece, was our case study research. I had the opportunity to spend a significant amount of time on the phone with Bob Chapman, to understand his process, what he was doing. We also spoke to persons at Jesus School who did a solar project. We also spoke to a church out of East Lansing, Michigan, and then the reading research. And then we had the opportunity to talk directly to DTE, to understand where they were, what they were doing, how they were supporting it, and what was available to us as we're looking to be better stewards of not only our church, but the community. And as Bob said, really this whole earth, what do they have available for us to do that? We put that all together, all of that research together. And our team says, we felt the recommendation that we made is that clearly solar made the greatest opportunity for us. And it touched so many checked so many boxes, especially sustainability, especially consistent with our faith belief, our faith system, what it can do financially and economically for the church, how we could, shift from paying DTE and put more dollars into ministry itself. All of those things there. So we made a recommendation to our congregation. We committed to solar. We were able to secure the consultation of D2 Solar, who is here to help us think through and work through how this can go. We further engaged in soliciting 3 proposals for install proposals based on recommendations, again, of people that we had a high degree of confidence in. Some are here with us here today. And then went about the business of developing the budget. One thing that was kind of maybe not unique to us, but it just came out at the same time. We were also at the same time engaged in working with the church trustee department on a big, maintenance upgrading process that was going on in the church. And so that was all coming together for us. And we began to look at where we're going, what it means, make sure strategically that all those pieces were coming together. And so then we get into what is on this slide says install and save. Install the system, begin to save not only the planet, but the dollars. Because like I said, for a system, for a structure our size, clearly DTE was almost a partner with us because what we had to pay of the different, because of the size of the building itself and how the building was utilized. So we looked at several different financing options. What made the most sense to our team, to the pastor of the church, and to the full leadership? We made a presentation to our diaconate as well as our trustee members, those who are responsible, and the pastor also. And we are, our decision was to move forward with the PPA as a way of financing and pulling this project together for us. And we also are looking at the unique circumstance is that we want to put this on our roof. Let me back up real quick. We want the panels to be on the roof, on the south side of the roof. Our proposals had panels, some in this area here, as well as these flat roofs here. Another had it along this roof, this east facing roof also. What makes this an interesting opportunity for us is that we're also having to completely replace this roof. This little area here on the east side of our church is the actual original First Baptist Institutional Church, not first original building. This was a Lutheran church many years ago. And that when we came over and purchased the church probably about 50 years ago, we had been in existence in Hamtramck, Michigan for another 50 years there before we moved to this location in Northwest Detroit. So we have the opportunity then to coordinate what we're looking at in terms of solar with a major program which we're undertaking, which will include completely replacing this roof system here, resealing. This is a glass, this is an atrium, completely resealing this area here. Okay, also, we have replaced this roof at a different time in the past. But all of this was coming together at once. At the same time, we were also engaged in solar lighting. This is our southern parking lot too, from that. So that's how we've got from our solar commitment, from our faith commitment to actually at the point now where we're at our year end, where we're actually pulling together the pieces that we need to do institutionally to move forward with a PPA and begin the install. One big piece of what we're looking at though is this little piece, this one little line here, engage with College Park. College Park is a community immediately surrounding our church. Our goal is to take whatever we learned and the options that we have and to take that out into that community to begin to look at options that we can engage the people in our community that they can take advantage of also. So that's a research piece that we're currently, we have a subgroup that's currently looking at that. How do we carry what we have out into the community?
Bill, I think this is a good place for us too, because we still have 2 more speakers.
Okay.
Is this good? Good.
Yes,
good.
we're good.
Okay. Okay. And questions? Also, if our speakers are willing to be available for comments, if you want to also put in your contact information, people may want to contact you directly. Diane is now going to talk about her condominium association as a different approach. This is where it's not the nonprofit. Well, it was a nonprofit condominium, but they formed a for-profit as well. So she's got a great story. to tell on how a multiple member PPA works.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Bill and Bob. What I will be talking about is how this PPA model not only applies to houses of worship, but also to condominium buildings, because most do have a nonprofit component, which is the association that owns them, that comprises all the residents. And so to continue the line of case studies, we'll be talking about the building where I live, which is Willie's Overland Lofts in Detroit. We'll talk a little bit about the building, the process we went through to go solar, some details about our system, our PPA structure, and a bonus benefit that we found out that we weren't really thinking about when we got started. So first of all, this is a picture of our building. We're in the Cass Corridor in Detroit. Our association, like I said, is a nonprofit and therefore not able to take advantage of the tax credits, but we did discover an interesting opportunity there as well. And we have a central electric service that powers our common areas, which the hallways, garage doors, elevators are all powered by that one service. And each of the residents, each of the units has its own separate electric meter. So we're talking about solar that services that those common area loads. So, and we have that electric bill was quite high. It's $30,000 a year just for those common areas. So there was an opportunity to save operating expenses for the building and also lower our carbon footprint by considering solar for our building. So the first thing was to gauge interest in solar in our process. Is there interest? Because all those 66 unit owners are the owners of the building. Is there interest in doing this for our building? And the goal was to do something that everyone was interested in. If there was interest, and you can see up here, we did a survey monkey and found out that the majority of people in the building were interested in it. It was just a question of how could we pay for this. So since the interest was high, we issued our sustainability committee in the building issued an RFP to get some more specific quotes about what this would cost. Then we needed to make a decision of who should own this. Should it be the association or a third party like the PPAs we've heard from today? One of the things we found out was that if it were to go through the association, and let's say all the owners were paid for that through a special assessment, the federal tax credit can actually flow through that nonprofit association and be claimed by the individual owners. So if we had a $3,000 special assessment and a 30% tax credit, that individuals could claim that $900 tax credit and essentially only have a $2,100 out of pocket. So that was an interesting thing that we discovered in the course of the research about potentially having the association own this. The tax credit opportunity is still available. Then we took a membership vote. You can see over here, we had an official vote through all the owners, and it did not pass, but it almost passed, but it did not. So as a result, that gave us direction to move forward with a PPA approach and to find people who would be interested in participating in that. So we went through a recruitment process. This picture in the lower right is an investor info session to educate people about the opportunity, the investment opportunity. And when we did find enough people for that, we brought it to the board and they voted on the project. The investors formed an LLC, which is a typical step in the PPA process. And then we move forward with the installation. So this is a picture of our array. We have a flat roof like they do at St. Peter's, and you can see that it's ballasted with the cinder blocks. We maxed out the roof essentially at 94 kilowatts, and that offsets about 50% of that common area load that I mentioned. Our installer that we selected through the RFP process was Michigan Solar Solutions, and our system went live in December of 2019. We avoid 73 tons of carbon dioxide per year. And these are a couple of aerial views. You can see what the layout looks like. And the system has been functioning nicely for us over the past 2 years. So far, we've generated 209 megawatts hours of energy and saved 324,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. And this little layout over here on the right, we can monitor the performance of the system at any given time. When the sun's shining on it, each individual panel shows up a bright blue, and it's kind of a fun thing to look at. And it also flags us if anything's wrong, they turn black, but fortunately that doesn't happen all that often. So a little bit of detail on our investor group. We had 11 investors who participated in this. We divided up the cost in $10,000 shares, and people bought one or more than one, and we raised the money to pay for the system. We were able to take advantage of all the federal tax credits, including a new benefit that was made available in the 2018 tax bill, which is an opportunity zone benefit. Certain areas in the city of Detroit are in opportunity zones, and people who invest in that using capital gains money are able to benefit from capital gains tax deferments as a result of those. So in addition to all the other solar tax credits, we were able to take advantage of the opportunity zone. We named our little LLC West Willis Power and Light. Our street is West Willis, and we have 2 managing members of the LLC. I am one of them. It's a 20-year deal. The building can buy out the solar array after year 5 if it's interested. Like the other PPAs, we own the array but sell the energy to the building at a lower rate. And if once the building owns it themselves, they can take advantage of all the energy savings. But right now, like in the other PPAs, the building buys that energy at a lower rate and saves money that way. And a bonus that we discovered after putting in solar is that the solar array actually effectively increases the capacity of our electric service here. We have several residents who are interested in EV charging, and before solar, our electrical service was essentially, close to full capacity. After solar, which essentially creates some additional capacity in the service, we had more room to install EV chargers without having to upgrade our service. And we are in the process right now of planning to put in 17 EV chargers in the building. And that could be a next case study, Connie, because that's been an interesting project as well. So that's the overview of Willie's Lofts. Thank you very much for your attention. And this concludes the PPA case study part of the presentation, and Leah Wisty from Michigan IPL will share her screen and talk about some other funding possibilities for houses of worship and other nonprofits. So Leah.
Hi, Leah, while you're
Mhm.
setting that up, Connie asked us to mention that we are running a little over time. So please put your questions in the chat. If you can stay after the talk, please do, and we'll get those answered for you. Okay, Leah.
Great. All right, I'm gonna get into presentation mode here. Okay, great. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what do we know about the landscape of houses of worship in Michigan that have done solar, and how did they pay for it? You've heard some in-depth stuff about PPAs. There are a couple of ways, not PPAs to do it. So I'm just going to be talking generally about those things. All right, so this is the first solar installation in Michigan that we're aware of. This was back in 2001, and that is the founder of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, Father Charles Morris, looking very dapper on the roof of St. Elizabeth's Catholic Church in Wyandotte. And you can see here, there's this little fan blade, right? A small wind turbine. And together, this one panel and this wind turbine were coming in at 0.89 kWs, right? So I just wanted to offer that as a little bit of context for here's where we were 20 years ago, and then we'll fast forward and show you some more current examples. But things have come a long way, and there's still a long way to go in some other senses. All right. So as far as we know, there are around 35 houses of worship in Michigan that have some kind of solar, and I'm defining that pretty broadly. So that could include, rooftop or ground-mounted solar panel arrays. That also includes things like solar water heaters or solar exterior lighting. We found, the National IPL organization puts out a solar survey, just trying to get a sense of which faith communities have installed solar, and anybody that has any kind of solar wants to be on that list. So that's why I define this pretty broadly. But most of those larger arrays, right, that are on rooftops are in the range of 15 to 20 kWs. There are some exceptions, certainly, but that's kind of an average that we've seen. And you've had a lot of, it's interesting how solar kind of spreads socially. There's been kind of a big explosion of solar in the Lansing area, and that's because folks are talking to each other and learning from each other. So I think social resources are really important in seeing, which congregations can do this. So one of the first questions we always get when congregations, are exploring this is they want to know about grants. And the bad news is that grants are typically not available for this. So probably put that out of your mind and start looking elsewhere. Almost all of the congregations, again, that we're aware of in Michigan have raised the money up front and paid cash for this, which obviously means that it's a challenge for probably most congregations to do this, because it means, you need to have some resources, right? Congregants with some cash resources who can do this, right? Which means that currently solar is not accessible to all in Michigan. A small handful have used PPAs. Of course, you heard from, excuse me, you heard from Bob, you heard from William Burke about, planning to use a PPA. I also want to invite you to check out the story of Genesis of Ann Arbor, which is an organization that has both an Episcopal church and a Jewish synagogue sharing the same facility. And they used a power purchase agreement to get a really large solar array over 100 kW, I think. And Murray Rosenthal, who helped quarterback that project, has raised his hand and said, hey, you can contact me, any house of worship that wants to do this. So his email address is here. We can drop that in the chat later as well, or I'll share my slides. We'll get that to you. I think I saw Murray also kind of entering this call at the beginning, so he may still be here. And I want to point out too that on the Michigan IPL webpage, we have a whole page of energy resources that includes some of the free energy efficiency programs that we offer, as well as guides about solar that are written for congregations. And then, in addition, we have some free legal templates for power purchase agreements, for LLC formation, those kinds of things, right? And those were created working closely with Diane Cheklich and the Department of Energy. So those are really good resources, because that's like about $10,000 worth of like legal work, and we're offering it for free. So check it out. Oops. And then one challenge with doing the PPA, sorry. Oops. Sorry, I hit my mouse the wrong way. One challenge though with the PPA is that you need some degree, some appetite for like working with kind of some legal complexity, some paperwork stuff, right? And folks can do it, and there's resources available, but just something to note, before you decide to embark on that. The couple of other solar financing options that exist include Michigan Saves. So some of you may be familiar with them. It's a relatively, I think they've been around for probably maybe 10 years or something, but they're a nonprofit green bank, and their mission is to, provide loans and financing options for building energy improvements. So that runs the gamut from heating, ventilation, any kind of electricity, sort of, indoor LED lighting as it shows here, but they're also offering loans for solar. If you're working with an installer, they also may be able to connect you with some solar financing. Michigan IPL, I've been working with D2 Solar, Diane and Diane, to develop a model that helps low-income, low-wealth congregations install solar by pooling impact investors from our network. So the PPAs that you've heard about so far are organizing folks from within the congregation to fund the array. What we're trying to do is to just kind of put out a call for anybody who wants to invest in a congregation's solar array to be able to do so. So we look forward to having some more updates about that for you, within the next 6 to 12 months, I hope. And of course, the benefits that we will pitch to investors is that this is a way to take climate action, and it's also a way to increase racial and economic equity, right? I think it's a big problem that solar has so far only been able to benefit middle and higher income people, many of whom are white and have various forms of privilege, right? So I think it's a challenge for us to see how can we expand access in ways that will increase equity. And I've also heard of this crowd investing platform that we've not used personally, but it's something that you could check out. It's called Raise Green, but this is a similar type of thing where you don't make a donation to a solar project, but you make an investment and you get a return. But it's sort of managed through this platform. Perhaps some on the call have some familiarity with it. Again, I can't vouch for it exactly, but it's an option out there. The last possibility I wanted to share is called community solar. I know some of you on this call are going to be familiar with that. It's not something that in Michigan we have the ability to do in the same way as what they've done here in Minnesota. But imagine this. So there's this place, Shiloh Temple, and our counterparts at Minnesota IPL helped make this happen. But so it's on this church. They've got this large array, 204 kWs solar on their roof, and they're able to allow area residents, right? So neighbors, folks right in the neighborhood where the church is, to subscribe to that solar, right? And most of them use a pay-as-you-go model. So they get monthly bill credits, and then they pay monthly, a kind of, I don't know what you would call it, sort of pay as you go, right? And they're saving from day one, right? Because their credits are higher than their payments, right? Currently in Michigan, we don't have the legal framework to be able to do that. But this is something that keeps coming up, right? As advocates bring it up, comes up in the legislature. So when you hear about community solar, right, it does happen successfully in other places, and it's a really cool way to bring solar to more people. So look out for opportunities where you can be an advocate for this, because it would really advance solar equity. And lastly, right, I showed you that slide at the beginning of Father Charles on the roof of St. Elizabeth's and Wyandotte, and it's so quaint, right? Because this is less than 1 kW. So I wanted to share an image of Father Charles that I took in 2017, right? This is him at Madonna University, where he also teaches, where they just did this huge ground mounted array, right? Well, total, they have over 1,000 panels at Madonna University in Livonia. Just to show you, like, costs have fallen so significantly. We're really doing much bigger projects now, and that to me seems hopeful. And that's my last slide. So I think we're going into Q&A now.
Great. Thank you all so much. Kendall is going to field the Q&As, but I just want to make a comment. I didn't know Madonna University did that, and I went there many years ago, so super excited. All right, Kendall, I'm going to let you ask a few questions here, and then once again, we're
Yeah.
recording, so it'll be available if you have to log off.
Yes, and thanks everyone for those great presentations. Let me pull up these questions here. Okay. So the first question, oops, apologies. The first question, well, this was for the first speaker. So this was Diane Van Buren. Somebody was curious about some of the sources that you used for the solar statistics that you, I think in the initial slides when you were going through the solar, just solar in general.
I guess I need to know which statistics there. Was it the amount of solar we have in Detroit? Was it the cost of solar? What?
Yep. Well, if that person who asked that question is no longer here, so maybe we can skip
okay.
that for now.
I'll
But that was a
just say
question
we've
for
been
you.
collecting data for many, many, many years over the years. And so for the Green Task Force that we've got the Renewable Energy Subcommittee, we've been collecting that data. So definitely anybody wants to know sources, shoot us a line and we'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you. And then for Bob Chapman, who is responsible for any system failure or damage to the system, and how much loss of system functionality is there during the winter months or when there's any sort of snow covering?
Sure, and I invite Diane Techlick to also chime in if there's something I miss on this, because she knows a lot about this. Again, to me, for houses of worship, the PPA is a good thing because there's so little risk. The PPA is responsible for the maintenance. Fortunately, there's no moving parts and there's almost no maintenance. But if something goes wrong, the church is not on the hook for it. We had a situation, for example, where we did lose the transmission of the power wasn't being recorded. The church lost nothing. They just kept getting the power from DTE. As far as the PPA is responsible for the equipment because it owns it until it doesn't own it, and then the church owns it, or the house of worship owns it. In terms of snow, I've had solar on my own roof for about 6 years now. You do lose some, but you still get some solar gain through the snow. And if you have, because of the slant and you get a little bit of heat, that snow tends not to stay on the panels very long. So I couldn't give you an exact number, but it's probably the equivalent of a heavily cloudy day, is how I would put it. You still, my equipment still shows some solar gain, even if there's snow on the panels, but it's small. It's very similar to a very, very cloudy day. There's no need, though, to think about cleaning off the panels or somebody going up there with a big rake or something like that. It's very, very seldom that snow is there for more than a day or so. Does that comport with, Diane, with your experience?
Yeah, the snow can be an issue where if you look at the online monitoring, you can see the production reduced, but it does melt with the sun and with the warmth from the panels. And they're also on an angle, even those roof mounted ones are at a 10 or 15 degree angle. So the snow will slide off. But in the winter, because the sun's lower in the sky and because we do have snow, those are factors, and there's lower output during that time.
Can I speak to that point for a minute?
Yep, go ahead, Jay.
So in Michigan, you have a historical about 3 weeks of the year collectively that you're going to have no production because of snow. But you're talking about 3 weeks collectively through the whole 52 weeks of the year. So it's really very minute when it comes right down to it. Bob, you were saying earlier that you were thinking about how you could, get that out so people would see it. You can actually put a monitor in your front hallway there, and you can have it hooked up to the service, whether you got Solar Edge or whichever the inverter you have, and then that way your members can actually monitor that and see it all day long, which is a really great opportunity. I've got to jump
I
off
think
right now.
Edgewood and East
Thank you,
Lansing has
guys.
done a nice job with that. It's one of the
Yeah.
ones.
I've got to jump
Yeah.
into another meeting, but you guys did a great presentation. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Have a great day.
All right. And then this next question was about Willis Overland Lofts. How does the project interact with DTE's net metering, and how do you get over the 20 kW limit?
Right. The project was able to take advantage of DTE's net metering. And well, that's really at a state level because we got our application in time in May of 2019. We are larger. We are actually at a tier 2 level of solar. So it's beyond the 20 kilowatts. And that does affect the rate of the credit through the net metering program. But we are participating in it. Does that help, Bob?
Yes, thanks. I didn't know you could still participate in net metering and be above 20.
Okay. So the next question is about PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. For those not familiar, it's a Michigan economic development law that's available, and it provides 100% upfront financing for any renewable energy project, including solar. And actually, I don't know if there was a question here, Bob, but there, oh, I see there's a case study on Detroit Unity Church, and they did use PACE for upgrading their energy infrastructure. So I don't know if anybody would want to share a little bit more about that, or
That's an interesting,
even a link
financial
to the
tool.
case study. Yeah.
yeah. It's an interesting
Yeah.
financial tool because, typically a faith-based community is not going to be paying property taxes. And so with PACE, that's, it's assessed as part of property tax, but I think what they do is they do set up that kind of account, and it does help defer payment out a little bit until that all gets set up. It would be an interesting case study for us all to look at.
We did
Yeah, I
have
can-
a house of worship probably a couple years ago now, before COVID. Our last house of worship was, I believe, at that location. Bob's on here now. Matler, do you want to say a few words about that? But it is a good financing option. And a lot of people do think houses of worship do not qualify, but they do qualify for PACE financing. So we can answer any questions on that in the future too.
I just
So-
wanted to pipe in real quickly, if everyone can hear me. PACE does work at a nonprofit, and how it works, because usually nonprofits don't pay a property tax. But in that instance, it would just be the board of the church or the temple, or the board of the nonprofit that would actually vote to voluntarily assess themselves a special property tax. And Diane, by the way, you would get term based on the lifespan of that unit. So if you have a 25-year lifespan of a solar project, that would be your term on the payback, and the ROI would be there on, a really good, solar system and good financing for it. So we didn't do solar at Detroit Unity Temple. They needed HVAC, insulation, roof repairs, that kind of thing. But it's good for either upgrading your energy and water systems or 100% installation of renewables. Thanks a lot, you guys.
And if it's okay, I can say that that's one option that was brought to us by one of our contractors to look at that. And so our trustee department is actually looking at that option to see if it makes sense, primarily because we have a lot else we're doing in addition to the solar.
Leah also on her slide pointed out Michigan Saves as another financial option for loans. And many of you know that through Michigan Saves, you can get very low, I think 0% interest for your energy upgrades. but DTE will not support that energy rebate or that interest rebate for solar. So you will pay a higher interest rate for solar with Michigan Saves than with the regular energy upgrades.
Yeah, and so every year we do a lunch and learn on PACE and Michigan Saves, or funding, a funding webinar. So we'll probably do that again next year.
That'd be
maybe.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions, Kendall?
The only other question was from Claire about the solar readiness assessment, which Diane put a link in the chat earlier for everyone, and was questioning how, well, just when can someone expect a response once they submit a form? And I think Diane, you responded to that in the chat already. Once somebody does submit the form, they'll follow up with you and just acknowledge that they received it. And then the next step would be one of their local installers following up with you and providing a quote, just so you can get a sense of what the size of the project and cost of the project would be. But either Diane or Diane, if you wanted to expand on that any further, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, it will take, usually we survey, and this is through the Green Task Force of the City Council that we're routing this in the spirit of trying to get more solar out into our communities. First Baptist was a participant in that, Lord of Lords, and it's just a way for people to organize their thoughts to help decide if their facility is solar ready or not. And there's no obligation in any of this, but it helps organize thoughts and set the stage for an installer to give you a quote so you can get a sense of how much your building can hold and what that might cost. No obligation in any of that, but at least helps to frame up the opportunity so that you can decide, you can have some numbers to raise financing with, et cetera. So that we're at the mercy of the installers scheduling for how long that whole process takes. So it is in terms of week or days at least, and response times on each side, but we do try and keep the process moving as much as possible. Hopefully that helps.
Great.
Yeah.
I think
think
that's
those
it.
were all the questions.
Yeah, we're a little bit over, but that's okay. Excited to answer the questions, and thanks to all of our speakers. We really appreciate it. And we're going to keep educating on solar. So keep your eyes out for, future meetings and house of worship meetings and multifamily. We have a variety of meetings. So sometimes we're together and other times it's just a full member meeting. So thanks to everybody for attending. And I'll send you the link out probably in a few days because we're starting a YouTube channel and I have to get it all in order. But in the future, you'll be able to go to our YouTube channel for 2030 District, Detroit 2030, and find all of our member meetings. So thank you so much for today.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
we appreciate it. And stay dry if you can, and no more flooding, hopefully, in people's houses.
No. Okay. Thanks all.
Have a great weekend,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody. Good luck
Connie,
on your
thanks,
day,
everyone.
Diane.
Thanks, Kendall.
Bye.
Bye, Bob.
Bye.
Bye.
It's about Bradbury. Good. We had a good turnout.
Yeah.
Very good turnout. All right. I think everybody's gone. I'm going to hit stop recording.
There
Okay.
we go.